Just when you thought you could turn your back and walk away, the dark cloud of human indignity follows you. You have no choice but to turn and look it in the eye. It's the sex offender hit list.
Let's head up to Maine, where we have a West Gardner man who entered a guilty plea to 14 charges relating to child sexual abuse material discovered on his phone back in August of 22. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Maine says state police officers executed a search warrant in West Gardner of John A. Hall on August 29th of 2022. A phone found on Hall contained images and videos of Hall sexually abusing a young child, taken at the time Hall lived in another state. The phone also included many messages between a person located in Maine while Hall was out of state, in which Hall sent the recipient illegal photos and videos. So he's been distributing that child sexual abuse material as well. Less than 2 weeks later, the 30-year-old was arrested on September 11th of 22 for failing to register as a sex offender, despite knowing he was required to notify the registry of a change of address. And of course, he hadn't done so after moving back to Maine in August of that year. But at the time of his arrest, officers found another phone which also contained images of victims under the age of 12 that Hall had downloaded from an online storage service. Investigators also found that Hall had asked for and received images over the internet from a 12-year-old child personally. Hall now faces 2 counts more of transportation of child sexual abuse material, 8 counts of distribution of child sexual abuse material, and 1 count of receipt of child sexual abuse material. Each carries a minimum sentence of 15 years in prison and a maximum of 40. So he's looking at about 250 years and a maximum fine of up to $250,000. In addition to all this, Hall is also charged with 2 counts of possession of child sexual abuse material, carrying between 10 and 20 years in prison, another maximum fine of $250, and up to 3 years of supervised release on the secondary count. The single count of failure to register as a sex offender could also earn up to another 10 years in prison. Well, we'll be lucky to see 5 out of this chomo, the way our judicial system is.
Now get in there!
An educational assistant at 4 different schools in the Halton region in Canada has been arrested and charged with numerous internet child exploitation charges. Well, an educational assistant's the same as a teacher's aide, in case anybody didn't know. But anyways, the Halton Regional Police say that the alleged man here is 42 years old. He was arrested and charged on March 7th in relation to an internet child exploitation investigation. Police say that he was employed by P.L. Robertson, Munns, Emily Carr, and the Viola Desmond Public Schools between the years of 2014 and 2019. In addition, police say that he taught private piano lessons to children in their homes around 2015 and had established Pitch Perfect Piano Service. It's unclear whether he offered music lessons through that company or not. May have just been doing it on his own and using that as a farce. But he's been identified as Cameron Ivins of Milton, Ontario. Ivins has been charged with numerous counts, including sexual assault, making child pornography, voyeurism, possession of child sexual abuse material, and exposure to a person under 16 years or more to sexual violence. Police have issued a photo of the accused and say that investigators believe that there may be many more additional victims.
My mother told me there'd be days like this.
And now over to Indiana. A Waterloo man has been arrested after an investigation into child sex crimes. Detectives with the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office and the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force arrested 42-year-old Thomas E. Sellers in Waterloo on Thursday morning. The arrest came after an investigation that stemmed from multiple cyber tips received from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Thomas was transferred to the DeKalb County Jail, where he faces initial felony charges of possession of child sexually abusive material as well as voyeurism. Well, you can voyeur all you want at those jail walls, Chomo. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, otherwise known as the TBI, along with the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, have arrested and charged a man in connection to an ongoing investigation into online child sexual exploitation. The TBI agents began that investigation after they had received information from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children about an individual, later identified as this crazy-looking chomo over here, Ernest Brown, a nice name, who allegedly possessed and distributed multiple files of child sexual abuse material through Facebook. Agents also determined Brown to have more than 5,000 files of child sexual abuse material. Well, on Friday, agents with the assistance of TBI's Criminal Investigation Division, the TBI's Cybercrime and Digital Evidence Unit, Henry County Sheriff's Department, and Homeland Security Investigations searched Brown's home, and there they seized 10 electronic devices and arrested Brown. See ya, Chomo.
I'd like to know what dirty stool pigeon squealed on me.
A teenage sex offender has been jailed after he was found to have communicated with a child. This is 18-year-old Ryan Walker, and he was given a 14-month youth detention order at the Carlisle Crown Court on Thursday. The court heard that Walker, who pled guilty to the offenses, had engaged in sexual communications with a child, and had caused that child to watch an indecent image. Well, we can all understand what that is. He was showing the kid pornography. He also failed to comply with notification requirements of the Sex Offenders Registry. Detective Anna Ritson from the Cumbria Police said Walker's phone was seized as part of that investigation, and undeclared accounts were found. Officers located a number of online usernames and a new passport, which had not been notified to police by Walker, who was well aware of his notification requirements. Also located were messages exchanged between Walker and a child, including pornographic material. She added, "Our main priority is to protect vulnerable people from sexual harm, and we work hard to monitor and manage people who are subject to such orders." And you got caught, Chomo.
I'm gonna give you solitary confinement for 99 years.
Oh yeah, we all know who this is. I mean, his face is a little small. I'd rather show more flames than him. Yep, Mr. R. Kelly. Well, his challenge against a 20-year sentence for child sex convictions has been squashed by the appeals court. The singer was correctly sentenced to 20 years in prison at a Chicago court on Friday. He was convicted in 22 on 3 charges of producing child sexual abuse images and 3 charges of enticement of minors for sex. In his appeal, Kelly, who's now 57 by the way, argued that the Illinois old statute of limitations, which required prosecution of child sex charges within 10 years, should have applied to him, rather than the current law permitting charges while an accuser is still alive. Well, hey, it's called a current law for a reason, you idiot. The appeals court rejected this, labeling it as an attempt by Kelly to elude the charges entirely after employing a complex scheme to keep victims quiet. He also argued that charges involving one accuser should just been tried separately from the charges tied to the other accusers due to video evidence that became a focal point during the original Chicago trial. Well, you know, I kind of agree with him, and the only reason I say that is, why not convict him on that charge too? You know what I'm saying? Anyways, prosecutors have said that video showed Kelly abusing a girl, only identified as Jane Doe, testified for the first time that she was 14 years old when that video was taken. The 3-judge panel from the appeals court noted jurors acquitted Kelly on 7 of the 13 counts against him, even after viewing those sickening and abhorrent tapes. See ya, Archomo.
Let me out of here! Let me out of here!
A Franklin man will serve 10 years in prison on a child molestation charge. Tony E. Powers was sentenced to 10 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections by Johnson Circuit Court Judge Andrew Rossner on Thursday for a charge of child molesting as a level 4 felony. He was also designated as a sex offender against children, requiring him to register for life. Powers was convicted by a jury of the charge on April 3rd, and the prosecutors say Powers sexually fondled a child at a Franklin residence between the years of 2017 and 2020. The child told Franklin Police and Indiana Department of Child Services that Powers' behavior seemed normal to them at the time, but in the years since those incidents have happened, they learned it was inappropriate. So they went and said something about it. On several occasions, when the child stayed overnight, Powers came into the room and felt under the child's clothing and did other inappropriate behaviors. The child told him that they were uncomfortable with this, but Powers would continue anyway until he heard another adult in the house. The prosecutor asked for an aggravated sentence due to the lifelong damage that he caused that child, who read a statement indicating she could not forget the smell of his breath and the feel of his hands touching her body. It's kind of disgusting. It makes me sick and sad and mad at the same time. Prosecutors say Power offered no words of apology or remorse to the victim or the family.
Now get in there!
Senator Otonel Tony Navarrete was sentenced on Friday after a jury delivered a split verdict in February in his child molestation case. During sentencing, a Maricopa County Superior Court judge ordered 1 year in prison. Yeah, 1 year. Come on, man. Followed by 10 years of supervised release for his single count of a child sex crime. He's, of course, now required to register as a sex offender also. Earlier this year, a jury deemed Navarrete not guilty on 1 count of molestation of a child and sexual conduct with a minor, but declared Navarrete guilty on a separate charge of sexual conduct with a minor. You know, if you got 2 counts there, you're going to find them guilty on one but not on another. The sex offender is a sex offender, and these guys will not stop at anything. So, I mean, why find them not guilty on one and guilty on another? I don't get it. So a mistrial was declared. That was back in October of last year, when jurors at the time were split on a decision about the allegations against Navarrete, who was a former Democratic politician and arrested in 2019 and indicted in 21 on 7 child sex crime charges. So it wasn't just the 2 that came up this last time. Court documents at the time stated Navarrete sexually touched the victim multiple times over a few years. Navarrete reportedly apologized to the victim and regretted his actions in a phone call which was recorded by the police. In that call, he reportedly said he wasn't well when the abuse happened. He resigned less than a week after his arrest, during which he released a statement saying he adamantly denied all the allegations after that phone call and would prove his innocence. Ever since then, Navarrete denied all the allegations. Well, during sentencing, his attorney announced they would file a notice of appeal to overturn his conviction. Well, you know, between me and you, I think that phone call that the police recorded, that's going to take care of all of this. See ya, Chomo.
Yeah, my mother told me there'd be days like this.
Alright, guys, take a look at this face. You remember it? I sure do. This is that high-risk sex offender who went on the run for 10 days in Vancouver. He pleaded guilty to breaching his long-term supervision order and failing to attend court. So he just ran, didn't show up. The province's prosecution service confirmed that Randall Hopley entered a guilty plea in provincial court on Friday. Hopley had walked away from a halfway house in Vancouver's downtown east side after cutting off his ankle monitor back in November. The public manhunt ended when investigators said Hopley turned up outside a police station to give himself up because he was feeling cold. What an idiot, man. Spring's here. Copley had completed a 6-year prison term for the 2011 abduction of a 3-year-old boy in southeastern British Columbia. He was released in 2018 to go live in that halfway house under a 10-year supervision order, but was arrested back in January for allegedly violating conditions of the order by visiting a library and getting too close to children. He was on bail for that charge when he disappeared. Hopley's expected to be in court next month to schedule a date for a sentencing hearing.
I'd like to know what dirty stone pigeon squealed on me.
A Zanesville resident was sentenced to time in prison for his sex crimes involving a minor. On April 22nd, Charles E. Cawley, 43-year-old of Zanesville, appeared in Muskingum County Court on common pleas for sentencing. Common Pleas Court Judge Kelly Cottrell sentenced Cawley to at least 8 years in prison for the felony crimes of pandering obscenity involving a minor. Cawley will also be required to register as a sex offender upon his release, for life, by the way. On September 9th of last year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children notified the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force program about child sexual abuse material determined to have been downloaded to a phone registered to Cawley's mother. Cawley's mother was contacted by investigators, and of course, she's innocent. She pointed her son out. She advised him that Cawley was using the phone at that time in question. On December 13th, the law enforcement officers searched Cawley's home, to whom he admitted downloading the CSAM to the phone. See ya, Chomo. Leave your mom out of this.
I'm gonna give you solitary confinement for 99 years.
When a child experiences trauma, they can be stripped of their ability to imagine. But imagination is colors. All the colors. Imagination is freedom. And whatever you want it to be. But a child without imagination is not a child at all. Will you help defend our right to imagine?